welcome to Ten Talks. Today we're all about serving and supporting you and really anchoring how to win your well-being. And our guest is Khalia.
Hi guys.
So great friend and just somebody that I am so honored that you get to really listen in on our conversation today. So today we're going to talk about everything we wish we would have known. From a college perspective, you are now a pro athlete and back home from Italy, which is very exciting. So we're going to start with just the power of your story. So tell me your story, where you came from, how you got to be fabulous Khalia.
Yeah, it's a long story.
We're ready for it.
Yeah,
it's okay.
Get some shortcuts. But yeah, I started off playing basketball. I mean, I was born in Scottsdale, Arizona. Our parents, you knew my parents actually. My dad played basketball, so I kind of had the sports background growing up, and my mom just kind of took care of the family, made sure we always had whatever we needed to go to practices, to go to games, school, whatever it may be. So yeah, I started off playing basketball. I think I dipped my toes in soccer and some like flag football at one point.
All the fun things of everything. Yeah.
But I realized I really didn't like people touching me. So the flag football didn't really work. Basketball was a no. And I saw my sister playing volleyball. She was doing great in high school, and I went to some of her high school games, and she was even so great as to go to the Olympic program.
Wow.
And kind of enter the pipeline in there. So I kind of saw her success and how great she was and kind of what she was emulating, and I wanted to be a part of that. So I decided to switch the sports, and I decided to focus on volleyball, and I started playing volleyball probably in like 8th grade, I would say, was my first like really serious year of playing. And I was just so lucky to have a really great coach. She definitely made things hard at times. That's where I met McKenna, Carlette's daughter. But yeah, my coach's name was Terry. She was so challenging. But I definitely think that's what made the grit and the resistance that I kind of still keep with me to this day. Kind of that's what cultivated that, having that relationship with Terry, having those challenges, meeting some really amazing girls that I still have with me to this day. So started off playing club, then I tried out for my high school varsity team, made varsity as a freshman, which was super exciting, and I was super lucky to have that opportunity. Played at Xavier College Prep here in Phoenix, and then had the chance to go to USC. Played there for 4 years in Southern California. It was such an amazing experience to be able to like play with a real university and college, and you hear all these older girls talking about it as that's what you're working for. So had really an amazing 4 years at USC, definitely ups and downs. We'll get into that, I'm sure, later. Some performance barriers there.
The joy of the college journey.
Yeah, for sure, a journey. Almost like a roller coaster.
Holding on.
But
parents, athletes, everybody. Coaches, everyone.
Tribe, So after USC, I graduated in 2020, right as COVID was going on, and decided to kind of take a chance on the world and go to Italy. Got an agent, kind of talked to him through social media actually, which was a kind of bizarre process. It's not as formal as the like college process or the other ones that you go through. So finally made it over to Italy in September of 2020 last year, and just got back I think about a month ago. I've been in the States, and that was a really awesome journey. I don't know how to speak Italian yet, but I'm working on it. And yeah, it was so awesome to learn from such older girls and kind of get my first rookie pro season in the books. And it's definitely been a dream of mine. Yeah,
that's
for sure, a 10 moment.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's been a dream of mine for a while. So it felt really good to kind of immerse myself in that experience in a culture, something totally new, which I definitely think after those college years, you kind of need like a restart sometimes for a lot of people. So yeah, that's like a short little snapshot of how I got here.
Okay, well, so let's talk about college.
Awesome.
And just your journey, because the desired outcome is really well-being for our athletes, taking care of their heart, their spirit. What do you wish you would have done differently or known? And the good news is your story is perfect just the way it is. Like all the challenges, they're always a gift. They give us something, and they're fantastic. The beauty of making it through it and surviving it and really being able to look back at it, you can give the gift to college athletes, to parents, anyone who's listening. Really, what do you wish you would have known?
I was actually talking to one of my peers, I guess. She's just someone who I've known for a while. Her name's Angela. And she kind of was mentoring me about how, instead of making things harder for myself in the future,
Right.
think about my future self and my future Khalia,
yeah.
and just try to make things a little easier for her. And I thought that was just kind of like a really good analogy, because there's a lot of times where, whether it's sports or academics or whatever it may be, I'm like, I don't really want to do this now. I could,
Yeah.
but I don't want to. So I'm just going to give myself a break, which is totally okay at times.
Yeah.
But I kind of felt myself slipping into that habit a little too much. So like my future self was just always stressed. My current self was like living for the moment, like relaxed.
yeah.
But my future Khalia was definitely angry with me.
Or not set up for success,
yeah.
right? Kind of like, hey, where are we going with this? What are we doing?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think just kind of doing small things that could set my future self up for more success. I think especially when you go into the world of professionalism, especially being an athlete and a woman who's an athlete, if I could have made like the small steps, whether it was eating or just the workouts of my
Right.
day.
Yeah.
So you explained that really well. If there's something I don't want to do, I can kind of thinking of it like my cardio.
Yeah.
So this morning, speaking of cardio, I woke up at like 7, went to a spin class for the first time.
Yeah. Little
And-
victory dance, get
Yeah,
you back out
good
there.
job,
Yeah.
Khalia. But that was just something where like in the moment I may not have wanted to do it.
Right.
And it was a moment of cardio, both emotionally and physically.
Yeah.
But there was a moment in the class, our instructor's like yelling, she's like, you know what, you should be proud of yourselves. You guys got this, you woke up, you chose to do the work. I'm like getting emotional. I'm like, you know what, she's right. So just like moments like that, I feel like I should remember and keep her little instructor head voice in my head. So yeah.
So team, the tools that Khalia is referring to are basically, the 10 moment we talked about and the cardio. So if you have something for your future self or your current self, and you're really contemplating, do I want to do this? Am I anxious about it? What's happening? A tool for that is the ability to say, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, what is this for me? So a 10 moment is something that is fabulous for you, right? It's like you being in shape and you feeling really good about yourself and taking care of a little future Khalia.
Yeah.
That's a 10. So then there's going to be moments where you anchor in the why. The 10 is the why, and you're really figuring out, what's the purpose of me doing this? Why am I pushing myself when I don't want to? And then we have the cardio. So just like in sports, we have cardio in life, and that's where there's something that you don't want to do, and you can really think about doing this will get me what I want.
Yeah.
So the great part about that is training the brain to focus on the desired outcome versus kind of the pain of the moment. So team, if you are thinking about really going for what's important to you, and there are performance barriers that show up, Khalia referenced those. So those are any barrier that's getting in the way of you really being able to go for what matters. So let's think about your life in terms of college. What were some of the performance barriers that showed up? There's a lot.
How much time do we have? Wow.
Pick your top 10. How's that?
So many for me. Okay. I think really starting from the beginning, like myself
Yeah.
and my conversation with myself was probably my biggest performance barrier and something I still struggle with to this day. Taking those steps, I think for me personally, I had this and I still do have this fear of being great, because if I put myself in all the way and I fail, I'm not good enough. But if I don't commit all the way, then I'm not giving my all. So no one can really criticize me because it's not my all.
Yeah.
So kind of that balance where I would kind of get stuck in doing things to feel good right now, but my future self wasn't thanking me. Rather than making things easier for her, I was okay with being mediocre and not placing the judgment on myself or accepting other people's judgment, because I wasn't allowing myself to even be at a level where I could compare my work with those of my peers around me. So the balance of kind of wanting to be great but not wanting to accept you're not good enough.
Or fail.
Exactly.
I mean, fear of failure is very real.
Huge for me.
Yeah.
That was the biggest performance barrier. Forgetting that I had that performance barrier and slipping into it was a big performance barrier for me. So yeah, getting in ways that I can kind of confront that anxiety that I was having and those fears that I was having. And I think that's the hardest part for me, doing things that don't make you uncomfortable. Because it's so easy to be comfortable and kind of be in your routine. But I think the players who are truly great, something that I've seen overseas too, and just throughout college, the people who are truly great are great at making themselves uncomfortable and kind of pushing past those anxieties and fears that everyone has, but they push past it, and that's what makes them great. So that's something I'm still learning.
That's a lifelong journey.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully one day I'll be able to conquer that, but definitely a performance barrier I'm still working on.
So let's talk about competitive greatness. You are competitive greatness. You represent competitive greatness. And team, our definition for competitive greatness is being our best when our best is needed. It's always, right? As a high achiever, we want to be great in life. We want to be great in sports. We want to be great in school. Anything we do, we really carry that pressure of a high performer. And so our tools for competitive greatness are truth, faith, and love. And so we start with the truth, which our whole conversation has been about the truth, really just kind of like what we wrestle with and what it feels like and what's going on up here and in our hearts and in the stands and with our parents and, you know, that whole support team. So let's talk about the truth about just body image, because that's a big one for athletes, and because our bodies are a machine, and you know there's a lot of attention paid to the body. So what have you learned that you would really like to give as winning strategies or words of wisdom?
Yeah, I mean, the body image conversation is definitely something I've always been aware of because I'm an athlete, because I'm a woman. Those intersections, I think, always play into the mentality that you have about body image. So it was definitely something I was aware of, something that I thought I even maybe struggled with, but I think it became really apparent to me after being pro and playing overseas. Not only the pressure that this is all like a real profession now, but when you're playing pro, you get measured and your body fat percentage gets measured like every month, normal things. I particularly wasn't even in the group that kind of had to cut down on their body fat percentage or anything like that, but just even being aware of the number every month. It didn't have to be a high number. I had a great body, a great physique. Everyone does. It's your natural body. You look great, girl.
Honor it, love it. Yes, very important.
But just being aware of those numbers and how they were fluctuating throughout the season and how I was looking at myself in the mirror just really played this mind game with me, that I was just so hyper aware of what my body fat percentage was, what I was putting into my body to fuel it, how it was going to affect my play, and just kind of all these different thoughts that were like so intrusive and so noisy to me, that it's definitely something I'm still kind of working with because it's new and it's been my first year pro, but it is definitely something I had to take a step back, have a conversation with myself and kind of say, like, how is this affecting you, Khalia? Like, are you doing okay? But yeah, definitely still a struggle that
So
I'm dealing with.
What's your winning strategies? Like, what have you learned? Because the good news is your awareness about what you're putting in your body, how your body's feeling, that's a winning strategy. Just being aware so that we're not on that automatic and, you know, we're intentional and we're there. So what did you learn that you're going to be able to take from first year pro, rookie pro, to getting better and better?
I definitely had to do some experimenting with this because at first I was like, I'm not going to look at the numbers.
Denial.
Yeah, I don't care. I'm going to avoid it by not looking at the numbers. But then I was like, okay, you still, like you said, the power is with knowledge. So I do want to be aware and kind of see how my body fat percentage is fluctuating. Actually, a really funny story. I'm like very open, no judgment, but I came into Italy and I was 17% body fat.
Okay.
We do our first weigh-in, and I was like, I'm not going to look. I know I've been in Italy, like pizza, pasta, like, come on. So I don't look. And then I'm like, okay, Khalia, confront it. Like, we're not going to run from it. To action. That's what I need. So I look at it and it went down by 5% my first month going to Italy. So like I'm feeling
Winning strategy pizza.
Yeah. I'm feeling empowered. Like
Huge winning strategy.
Oh my gosh.
Don't let anybody tell you pizza's not a winning strategy.
Yeah, it is the strategy. So I'm feeling so great, but then after that it starts to go up again, and it's like 13-14% body fat, which once again, if I give myself some perspective, I'm like, Khalia, 13% body fat, you're doing amazing, sweetie. But then these intrusive thoughts of like, okay, 13 can become 15, and 15 is 20, and 20 is 30. So yeah, just things like that. But I kind of, once again, this goes back to my strategy.
Yes.
I realized that going to the fruit markets that they have there and like buying really authentic, organic
Healthy,
fruits. Fruits.
Real, like real food.
Exactly. Fruits, vegetables. I even like did some research on like all the different contending ideations about like what is the best thing to eat for athletes, for gluten-free, if I should be eating fish, if I should be eating meat, and all this stuff. But it can be overwhelming.
I was going to say, which
Definitely.
can be really a lot,
Yeah.
right? Because everybody's body is different.
Yeah.
So you could read one thing and think, okay, I'm going to do that, and your body not respond to it.
Exactly.
And you're doing everything right, and then you feel like a failure.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I said, I did what was in here. So, I mean, so that's hard. So how did you work through that?
So I think using all of that knowledge, and then, but my one baseline is I always would know how I felt. So there were also times where I felt myself only eating like salmon, broccoli bowls with like Brussels sprouts and sweet potatoes, and I was still feeling like just not good.
Not fabulous.
Yeah. Not the winning strategy that I had with pizza.
Exactly.
So I just kind of had to find that balance, and kind of like the intuitive eating that people talk about, not putting too much pressure on yourself. Yes, be knowledgeable and kind of have care for yourself, but I think that at the end of the day, like what mattered most to me is how I was feeling, how my body was functioning, kind of treating it literally as a machine, and taking the emotional aspect out of it about like, okay, but how am I going to look in this dress, and does it fit me, instead of like, do I fit into it? So just kind of like little perspective changes like that I could kind of use to ground myself again, like in sports, but it kind of translated to all these different aspects of my life.
And let's talk about loneliness, depression, just some things that I think everybody experiences.
Yeah.
And being able to go back to competitive greatness, a truth is I'm going to have times when I'm really lonely. I'm going to have losing seasons in life. I'm going to struggle with depression. What have you learned that you would like to give really just, words of wisdom to somebody listening that maybe experiencing that, but they're embarrassed or they don't want anybody to know, or any of those kind of things?
I think for me, kind of those feelings of kind of wanting to be sneaky with your depression.
Or hiding it, or,
because like from the outside looking in, I have nothing I should be depressed about. Or kind of comparing my situation to someone, and I'm like, oh my God, she just lost her mom, her parents are going, like all these crazy things that could happen to people, where from the outside, I wasn't going through those things. And for sure, there's always things you can pick out in your life where you can justify whether to be sad or not to be sad. But one, taking the judgment and the comparison out of it was a big thing for me. But yeah, allowing myself to feel it, allowing myself to not label depression as necessarily bad, but just another emotion that I had to figure out something to do with. Anxiety to action, I think, is probably something that I struggled with the most, but was the biggest strategy that I had to use in order to get out of that depression. And something for me is I would be just wanting to lay in bed all day. Sometimes I'd want to eat everything, sometimes I'd want to eat nothing, but always wanting to just do nothing, really. And turning that anxiety to action is something that I really had to confront. So if I get into those moods, I know I have to get myself up somehow and start doing something. Actually, real talk, had a talk with my mom yesterday. She was like, "You've been home for a month,
Right.
Khalia. You're not doing anything. You're just like," I'm just a normal unemployed person here. I left the glory in the volleyball back in Italy. So yeah, that kind of inspired me to do my spin class today. And
Little victory dance. You
yeah,
did it. Yeah, celebrating.
I'm feeling
yeah.
better. Then
Yeah.
I got your call
Yeah.
to do this, and like, so yeah, it was just something really small, like a spin class, but I knew Anxiety to Action needed to put something
Yeah.
out there to start going, and yeah, so I'm like having a great day now.
Well, and the great part is it's small things that make big impacts.
Yeah, for sure.
And so it's not about I'm going to change the whole world and I'm going to do all these gigantic things, because then it's like, maybe I'll watch another episode of Netflix, right? Like, I mean, it just feels too big.
Mm-hmm.
And so, team, I hope that you're getting hope and really feeling just the power of one small thing can make a big impact. And so when we talk about just this pressure, let's talk about the pressure from like athlete to coach. What did you learn from that? What do you wish you would have known?
Oh gosh, yeah, I've had definitely a lot of very different coaches in my life and a lot of different experiences. I think both a pro and a con of going, finding a club team here in Arizona where I had the same coach for 5 years, 6 years, however many years it was, is I got really accustomed to knowing what she was thinking. Our communication was like very clear.
You had your rituals and routines,
Yeah,
good or
whether-
bad.
Exactly.
You know, right,
Whether
right.
we were angry or not, our communication, we knew what
Yeah.
we wanted, we knew what we expected out of each other. So it was like very comfortable. Then in college, got with a coach who I wasn't as close with. So it was really hard for me to kind of cultivate a relationship with him. And that's something I struggled with.
And communication, right?
Yeah.
Being able to feel that connection and communicate and be like, I need this works for me, this doesn't.
Exactly. And I think, once again, with our generation, there's a lot of coaches that are older who, these girls who are 18 to 22 years old are coming into college, and that communication gap is definitely can be a barrier, like a language barrier almost. And then dealing with an actual language barrier in Italy, there's just like so many different things that I've had to go through with coaches. But I think I always know how I want my relationship to be with my coaches. I understand it's an authority figure. There's going to be a little bit of power disparity, but I do know that I want to feel respected in the relationship. Right. I want to respect them. I want to have an open line of communication. So in Italy, I used the idea of how I wanted our relationship to be and how I wanted us to talk and communicate, and I just set up the steps for that to be easier. Right. So my coach was actually a little younger in Italy, so I knew if we were going to talk, it was going to be definitely more casual. I wouldn't have to sit down and call a meeting like I would with an older coach or something like that. And yeah, like, so my coach in Italy, we would sometimes try to go out for coffee and just small things like that, which is harder for the younger girls out there watching, but whatever, they're a person.
Yeah.
I think it's really
relationships.
easy.
It's a relationship. So
it's definitely
just
easy to
owning
forget.
that,
That they're people too.
Human to human.
Yeah.
This is
But
human to human.
I think it helps so much if you can cultivate a relationship with your coach where you can talk, you can go into his office before a practice and say, hey, just so you know, this is a performance barrier. It may not affect my performance at all, but I am feeling sick. Just wanted you to know I'm going to try my hardest. See you in practice, coach.
I'm still here.
Yeah.
I'm still going to I'm going to do my job.
Yeah.
I'm still going to show up, but my truth is I'm struggling today.
Yeah, exactly.
And the coach being able to be like, got it, and let's go see what you got today.
And I think that can be really intimidating, but learning something that I wish I knew, learning at a young age the certain small responsibilities that I would have to carry with me when I was older. So whether it's cultivating a relationship with my coach, whether it's meal prepping my food a little earlier so I can be in practice and stretch a little more, just the little things do make it easier. So if you have a chance to kind of cultivate a relationship with your coach, once again, communicate with him, talk to him, not just about volleyball, but about life as a human, I do think that like compassion is something that's really missing, especially in sport, but in general.
Yeah, very true. And so it's not easy to do. And let's talk about that relationship with your parents. So the pressure of really how do you manage parents and how do you manage expectations and how do you manage them wanting playing time, and I mean, because a parent's a whole part of this support system.
Yeah.
And they're in your ear in a really big way.
For
And
sure.
if they, and I want every parent to be president of their kids fan club, right? You only have one parent and you got lots of coaches and lots of things. So I'm totally for the parent being that president.
Absolutely.
And then how do you really balance what your coach's expectation and your truth? Like, whether you really should be playing or the coach is this, and the parent's got a different perspective going on. So how do we get that in alignment?
I think it's taken a lot of work, but I do think, like coaches, it's very easy to get into. I think, like coaches, parents can be tricky because you do want to respect them. You want to listen to what they have to say, especially with a parent. You know that it's coming from a place of love.
Right.
And especially after a game, your parent moms a lot of the times can go on these rants about, why was Ashley playing? She wasn't getting as many kills as you could have gotten.
That comparison factor.
Yeah. I think that is probably one of the most dangerous things, parents, if you're watching, you can do for your kids. And kids, just remember not to get sucked in. I think it's really helpful if you have the relationship where you can be like, Mom, I don't think this is helpful for me right now. It doesn't have to be a big deal. I know it's so, when your mom starts talking, you're like, oh my God. So I know my mom's listening,
a lot of drama.
Yeah. So instead of, if you're a girl, if you're a boy, we're feeling all these emotions, just hearing the voices of our parents. So take a step back, take a breath, and just say, without the drama, this isn't something we need to talk about right now. Especially talking about games the day of the
or
game.
15 minutes later,
No.
not winning strategies.
Not a winning strategy.
Yeah.
My coach in Italy actually did that. And that was really, really hard. And I still, if you have any points for me, let me know, because I would be like, I really do not feel comfortable talking about this game right after the game ends, especially on the bus with our team.
Right.
So I wouldn't really know what to say to him about that and trying to find that relationship. But parents, try not to get sucked into that. Kids, try to be patient with your parents. They do care, but just
sometimes a little too much.
Instead of president
about
of
the wrong
fan
things,
club,
right? Yeah.
They're like commander of the fan club.
So, but Khalia, what shows up for me when you're talking about that is comparison versus compassion. Because the comparison part is really a judgment, and we all know judgment doesn't feel good. It's not for us in any way. Versus compassion is totally for me.
Yeah.
And it really anchors me in so a parent being like, oh my gosh, I just know how hard you work it, how much you practice and how playing is so important to you or whatever. That's the compassion component.
For sure.
Versus comparison of, so why aren't you, beating this person or doing that?
Yeah.
So the beautiful part of that comparison versus compassion is really just staying present with me. Keep the conversation between us, if we're in the car together, keep it between the two of us. I always say, don't talk about anybody that's not in the room.
Yeah.
So for instance, if it's like, well, why wasn't McKenna playing? It'd be like, is McKenna in the car with us? Because you can kind of just add humor. To it in a way that, because we do it somewhat automatically. So being able to have that as a winning strategy is we don't talk about anybody that's not in the room or with us. So if somebody starts chatting away about someone, you just kind of look around, did they come in? Did they join us? Because it just immediately feels different.
Yeah.
And you talk about, what are some winning strategies or some life coaching tools that you can use for your coach when they want to, or a parent, anybody that wants to talk immediately after the game. Just being able to say to yourself, all information is good information.
Okay.
Huge winning strategy team. So let's talk about winning strategies for how to just take a little space between competing and being able to get a new perspective on it, which is a huge winning strategy for you. So the tool for that, team, is all information is good information. Literally being able to say that to yourself, you receive it really different.
Yeah.
So for instance, if your boss, your parent, or a coach, whoever that authoritative figure is that you want to respect and honor, you know, you might not have the ability to say to the coach, hey coach, that doesn't work too well for me. You know, that's not a winning strategy. I want to talk to you, you know, a day or two after. If you don't have that relationship or that ability, you just being able to go into the conversation and receive it as all information is good information. Great saying, team, just constantly, like anytime someone's kind of yapping away at me and I'm like a little bit too much information, all information is good information. Wow, interesting. All information is good information. So it really puts me back in control and puts me in a frame of mind that I'm just receiving information.
Okay.
So let's just talk about love. When we talk about competitive greatness, certainly that love of the game, the love of yourself, but it has to be anchored in something bigger than just an emotion, because love isn't, it can't, when it's an emotion, it comes and goes.
Yeah.
So what have you really experienced as you've started to figure out this love component of competitive greatness?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I definitely have love for volleyball. It comes and goes though, so
It's a love-hate relationship.
yeah. We fight a lot. Sometimes it's a little toxic, but I think trying not to make that relationship toxic is what I have loved to learn how to do, and how I navigate my relationship with volleyball has really helped me navigate what I want with myself as a person, because there was a time where I found myself being defined by it, and that's when I really rebelled against it.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't want to play anymore. It was kind of my last years of college. I got to a point where I was like, if it's going to define me, I don't want to do it. But then in pro and being overseas, you definitely get a different relationship than you had. You don't have school with it, which helped me tremendously. You don't have as many responsibilities, and there's not all these like social contracts of being, I don't know how you, the unspoken social contracts of like being on a team in college, at a university, and all these different things that you kind of have to learn how to manage.
All
as
the
you're
demands.
playing. Yeah, exactly.
Social contracts is a great term for it, in terms of just expectations, demands, and again, no training. You know, it's not like anybody's coaching you up on how to do it. They just because you're a great athlete means you're supposed to be great at everything else you're doing.
Exactly. So I knew that my relationship with volleyball wasn't the typical one where people are like, I love the sport, so I play. I kind of needed to find another motivation that wasn't anchored in emotion, because like you said, that comes and goes. So I have started thinking about what I want in my life in the future. Once again, making things easier for my future self. So if I can have a great contact, this one contact, okay, now I can build another one, and I can get on a track of doing things really good. And then I do good things in a row, and then I become this great player, and because I'm a great player, I get these opportunities like this, or like getting paid more money, or getting the chance to touch other people that I wouldn't have gotten if I didn't play, or maybe if I was sitting on the bench, or whatever it may be. I just kind of learned that I need to embrace my role in volleyball in order to come into my role in life.
Yeah, it's well said.
Yeah, it's hard to kind of describe. So I'm kind of playing with that right now, and not leaning so much on just loving the sport, because I do really struggle with that. I don't know if I'm unique in that way, or
I don't think so.
Yeah. If we're
You're very unique and super special, but in that particular percent, you know, a lot of people struggle with, well, mainly because it feels like it's something you should have, and when you don't have it, that's when you start, the noise shows up. Well, I better quit because I need to only be doing something I love, or all that chatter shows up.
Yeah, and I think also playing overseas, it was like taboo. I think also the way I approached it, like sometimes I would ask my teammates, like, do you guys really love volleyball? And I think asking it in that way can be a little off-putting. But a lot of people were like, yeah, we love it. We absolutely love it.
Or no,
yeah,
I don't.
I was like that. I was like, I'm really
not feeling it, right?
I'm not president of the fan club of volleyball. So yeah, trying to find ways that I could use volleyball, and I don't hate it. Like, I definitely think there's give and takes. It's a relationship, really. Yeah. And using volleyball in my relationship to navigate where I wanted to be in life has just kind of been my winning strategy on how I deal with the lows and level them out, and also the highs.
Well, team, you're getting to hear just the power of really owning your profession, because volleyball is your profession. Yeah. Everybody's going to have different professions. If we feel like you have to love it, then you could be chasing professions your entire life, because it's an emotion and you're going to feel it, versus if you love what you can do with it. So being able to take what your profession does for you and how can you use your platform for social good. Of course, one of my all-time favorites, sports philanthropy, and you know, that's a love of our world. That's a love of something so much bigger than ourselves, playing a small role in something bigger than us. For example, professionally, making money, you can take care of your family. Making money, you can set yourself up for a healthy future. You know, money's not a bad thing. Loving, you know, being able to be successful, none of those things are negative. And so really being able to direct your energy to what is it that I love about this profession? What does it provide for me so that I can show up and really have my 10 lives? So team, we've talked about a lot today. What a joy it's been to be on this journey. I have one more little piece of info I'd love to talk about. It's about really being competitively great and there being joy. Because joy can be absent from the game, and with high achievers, it's like if we don't win, it's miserable. And you know, I want to really introduce how to bring joy into competitive greatness. Your thoughts?
I think once again trying to eliminate the dichotomy of good and bad, like winning is good, losing is bad. Playing well, scoring 30 points is good, scoring 20 is bad. So kind of thinking about the dichotomy, the judgments that you have around things or abstract ideas that you consider good and the ones that you consider bad, and why that is, and how you can kind of reframe that. So I think in club, with McKenna, we came from like a really amazing club team where we never lost. So we didn't really, so much joy. We never really had to deal with that. And then in college, I started losing, and I was like,
not so joyful.
Why do people play if they have to lose? Why do they have to lose?
What are we doing?
So that was the first time I experienced that. Luckily, I was in college, and it was
you made it that far.
It was something definitely challenging, because you're so used to not only being in a routine of doing something and winning and being good at it, but actually putting work in and then getting a result. So if you put the work in and you lose, you feel like, I did all this work and what the heck, for what? So that's important. So once again, I think especially professionally, I had to just focus on every individual point, or anything that I could do to help my team, I would try to do. So instead of thinking of myself as an individual player, more of a tool for the team. And instead of being mad, like my self-talk when I did something wrong was so negative and awful. But instead of doing the negative talk, I would just automatically think like, okay, this is what you're supposed to be doing with your platform, with your hands. What should I be thinking about? What should I be anticipating in the game?
So just so you know, team, from a tool perspective, that's called forward focus.
Oh, okay.
So being able to take, when we make a mistake or when, things aren't going our way, instead of dwelling in it and staying here on this track and going, say to yourself, forward focus.
Okay.
Just the command of forward focus tells your brain what to do.
Okay.
And then you can put in what you want to focus on. So forward focus, adjust my hands. Forward focus, so winning strategy.
Yeah, exactly. So taking that element, the negative element out of it, and just a constructive element was definitely helpful for me in taking the focus off of the result and more of the process. And winning and losing is the result rather than the process.
Yeah, just enjoying the journey.
Yeah.
Definitely all of these things. Well, team, so hope you have enjoyed this conversation. Thank you for you having the courage to really be a champion for you, honor you, be for your well-being. Really go out and start to think about your truth, be competitively great for you, have faith in you, and really find what you love professionally so that you can invest and practice, and enjoy the journey. Thank you so much, Khalia.
Thank you for having me. Good luck, guys.